That's a loud clap.
Oh, very good. It's that.
All right. Welcome to the Matty B Files. You can check us out at my website, matthewpmbigelow.com. You can also go to Podbean, check it out on YouTube, or iTunes, Spotify, all those places. Just keyword search Matty B Files. And if you want to get a more specific result, just put in today's guest, Tomas Ballada, into the name. And there you go. You got your search results. You can view the videos, hopefully. Still new to the videos. But it'll be definitely up there for all your streaming needs. MatthewPMbigelow.com. Thank you very much. And all right, let's begin. How's it going, man? Thanks for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
You dressed up.
Yes, yes.
So your name is in you got a Japanese bilingual
Right.
business card here, which
I
is
do.
pretty cool. And it's Ballada Tomashu.
Tomashu, yes.
So this is Tomashu, and is the Japanese version of the American version of Thomas, but I'm assuming Tomashu is that how they?
Well, you might be familiar with that, but the name Thomas, it's originally it's actually Jewish, right? Although I'm not Jewish myself. It comes from Judean language, right?
Yes.
And it means a twin.
Oh.
Interestingly enough. So it would be pronounced differently, in each and every country. So, for example, in Great Britain, in the UK, or let's say in the US, you would say Thomas or Tom, right?
Yeah, Tommy.
But, yes, exactly. But in Poland, for example...
Tommy B.
In Poland, for example, it would be pronounced as Tomáš, whereas in the Czech Republic, it would be Tomáš. So this is actually the Japanese version of the Czech pronunciation of my name.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I saw the English one at first and I just saw Thomas.
Yes.
Then I switched it over and I noticed that the katakana has the shu.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's a little bit different than usual for me, my usuality.
To be fair, it gets a little bit confusing for Japanese as well. So they refer to me as either Thomas or Tomáš or Tomáš or Tomas or, anything in between.
Do you ever settle for Tom? Do people go Tomu after a while? Or do they not clue into the nickname aspect of your name?
Well, the interesting thing
nickname ability.
The interesting thing is that my surname is actually very Japanese friendly because it's Ballada. And as you know, there are people called Harada-san here in Japan, right?
Yes.
So people do prefer to call me by my surname, by family name.
You're the Rose Patch.
Oh, yes.
Barada. Yeah, Bara for Rose, Da for Tambo for the,
Right.
Wow. So you got a very interesting name. So thank you for joining the podcast today. Can you first, of course, just introduce yourself? Who are you, and what's this thing on your thing called Tokyo Calligraphy Education Association? And that's written on the back here. What is calligraphy? How do you spell that? I say that again in Japanese. Tokyo
Shodo Kyoikai.
Okay, and that's an education center.
Right.
So yeah, please.
Oh, well, my name is Thomas. I'm actually half Czech, half Pole, and since I was, I think, 14 or 15, I've been really interested in the Japanese culture, especially traditional culture. So I would start practicing several traditional disciplines, starting with Batto Jutsu, which is the art of the quick draw of Japanese sword, and actually involves tameshigiri, which is a practice cutting of like straw mats and bamboos and stuff.
So you do that? You have a sword and everything?
I do that. I even have a YouTube channel with videos on that. Although I'm not a YouTuber, so
me neither. I just upload to YouTube.
Right.
Don't mistake us for YouTubers.
Yes.
Not YouTubers.
Yes, that's correct. And then it progressed, and I started actually going.
Where's your
to
YouTube
Japan.
channel, just in case you can plug it?
Well, yeah, it's just if you put in my name, Tomas Ballada, just like that with 2 L's. I think several
sword
videos.
or something like that.
Yeah. Tameshigiri, for example.
Tamashigiri.
Tameshi.
I don't know these Japanese because I this is interesting because
Right.
you're so into traditional Japanese. I like it, but I didn't come here for that. So
Right.
we're kind of like these different foreigners living in Japan. I'm working in tech and teaching, and you're blasting into the past.
Yeah, that's like really completely the opposite of my, let's say, area of expertise.
Yeah.
And well, then I then progressed, and I starting actually going to Japan, and so it ended up with me spending half a year in a Buddhist temple in Kumamoto, Minami-Aso.
Is that in the mountains?
Yes,
And which prefecture?
Kumamoto.
Kumamoto. Oh,
Yes.
in Kyushu.
yes,
Oh,
in
okay.
Kyushu.
Yeah.
So that was it, and then I started practicing other disciplines like Nihonbo, or traditional dance, or Katori Shinto-ryu, which is Kobujutsu, or Daito-ryu, which is Aikijutsu, and so on and so on. And eventually, I ended up coming here and doing my master's degree at the Sophia University here in Tokyo.
Which is very international and
It is,
traditional as well.
Yeah.
I've had someone from Sophia
Oh, is that
University
so?
on the podcast.
Oh, fantastic!
Yes.
I need to find them. Yeah. So that's it. And then after graduating, well, the thing is, like, before the podcast starting, right? We've been talking about the issue where if you're interested in, if you're an artist, let's say, that you cannot,
A creative type.
that you cannot really make money.
Yeah.
Usually unless you are very, very lucky and
Yeah.
you get successful.
I
and
know
famous
some
and-
people, but
Right.
they're not the mainliner.
Yes.
They're in the background. They're in the support. They're still offering very valuable services, but
Yes.
to get a full-time gig as a creative,
Yeah.
Japanese people just don't care about like if they want to watch foreign dramas, they're not going to
Right.
pop open a Japanese TV show, for
yeah.
example.
Yeah.
So it's not like they just don't care, but it's just like we can come here and be like, yeah, we're going to be all creative and stuff, but the mass market audience appeal is quite minimal.
Right.
So anyways, continuing
Yeah,
with
so after
that.
graduating, I was just in a bit of a conundrum because I really wanted to either get something in what I studied in the field of international relations, or something related to traditional Japan and traditional culture. Now of course that's quite complicated. You cannot really earn a living with the Japanese swordsmanship. I think those days are
Yeah,
long,
there's robots
long,
that do
it's
it
over,
now.
right?
Have you seen that video?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah?
I've seen it. It was fairly interesting. I mean, they have. Actually, there is a doll.
It's a robot versus a robot with a sword, a robot arm with a sword versus a Japanese super swordsman.
Yeah.
Cutting those rolled up mats.
Machi Isao-san.
Yeah.
We are friends on Facebook.
Ah.
We've never met in person.
Ah.
He seems like a very, very nice guy. There's actually a video of a 17th or maybe 18th century doll actually shooting arrows, which is even more impressive than the robot.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say is, actually, I had
where
this
to go
issue,
with the
and first half a year
postgraduate
Right.
fear.
Right, and also that in Japan there's this like crazy job hunting culture.
Yes.
Shirikatsu, and then
You even have to buy a special suit.
yeah, I
There's a
really
uniform for everything.
Yeah, I really hated that. So I ended up working at Narita Airport.
In the sword department?
Oh no, unfortunately not. Just translating and then doing stuff like that for a small company over there. But I didn't really like the job, so I switched professions after half a year and started actually working here. And basically, the company itself.
Working at the
Yes,
at the Calligraphy Education Center.
Association, and the company itself is over 100 years old.
Okay.
But all the time they had been teaching, had been catering to Japanese and teaching Japanese calligraphy. And what I'm trying to do is actually open, or I've already done it. I've opened a program for visitors from overseas and from non-Japanese people that can go there and just experience calligraphy, shadow making, and
so this is a good niche. It is a bit of a niche
Well,
or a
yes,
niche
yes,
market, but
yes.
it's very targeted, and that's a cool thing. How long have you been doing that?
2 or 3 months, and we've already had...
Just from this year?
Yes.
So you recently started?
Yes, very, very, very
When did you
recently.
graduate?
Last year.
Oh,
September.
Okay.
Although I'm 29 years old already.
Okay.
And the reason for me
I'm
being...
38.
Okay, but you know, I guess you've been a graduate for quite some time.
Yeah.
I mean, So the reason for for me being a little bit late with that is that actually my first university, or let's say college, was the Police Academy of Prague, or I guess it would be called English, something like that. And after 2 years...
Were you studying like homicide investigations?
It was called Law and Security Studies. So there was a lot of law involved, of course, but also, a shooting practice and swimming and...
What kind of guns?
Arresting techniques. Just, Chazet.
Handguns?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Soviet made, Russian made?
Oh no, checkmate.
Czech made.
Well,
Czech arms.
Yes. Well, Czech are actually quite famous on the firearms market.
Okay.
Make some really good guns. Anyway, but then I went to Kumamoto and returned after a year, and by then it was I wasn't able to graduate. I had already missed so much of my school that there wasn't enough time for me to graduate, so I just switched.
It wasn't for you then.
Yeah, I guess.
Do you? So you traded in the gun for a sword,
right? But and had I finished that school, I wouldn't have come to Japan, I guess. So.
Yeah, I graduated a bit late too, 26, but not as late as you. But I did. I don't have a master's.
Right.
But I switched colleges, and then I had to.
Right.
Finagle my way through a program, and there was like waiting lists, and I just had to wait until those.
Yeah.
It was a very competitive writing school of all things that I had to wait in line for, but whatever. I got through it. Did a lot of film studies.
So I guess we got our bachelors around the same age.
2005?
No, around the same age.
Oh,
like
around the
26,
same time.
26, right?
25, 26.
Yeah. Was more or less the same.
The same age, but then the master's.
Right.
And what was your master's in now? From Sofia?
Yeah, from Sofia
Because you went to
University.
the police academy, then came to Japan.
No. First the police academy, then something called Metropolitan University in Prague, where I studied international relations and European studies in English. And then I came here to Sofia and finished in what was called, I guess, global studies.
Okay. Which is very different from police.
It is.
Before we go into like the whole Japanese culture thing,
yes,
you said that you were studying security. I've been researching a lot about security recently. Like when you say Czech security, Czech police study of security, what does that mean?
Well, really, plenty of things. Because, for example, one subject was about.
I'm gonna have a highball.
Yes. Fantastic idea. Was about arresting a suspect, right? So basically, arresting techniques and arrestment tools and how to use them. A different subject would be how to protect an object. So we would learn how to use security cameras and what kind of camera and what kind of security circuit would send messages where and how and stuff like that, and whether like for example. There's this like barbed wire, right?
Yes.
And then there is this like it's also a barbed wire, but instead of those like small spikes protruding from it, it would be it's like you change the spikes for razors.
Yes.
Right. So I prior to attending this particular class, I had no idea, or I had no idea that something like that, even existed. And then you had this Israeli invention where, for example, if you have like a moving target, like a mob, let's say, and you can have two trucks, and then they could deploy this particular wire, like moving in a circular motion, right? So in the end, they would encircle, let's say, the target.
Palestinians.
Well, Okay, well,
Sorry.
the target. and basically like log them in the circle. So it was fairly interesting.
Did you get to use those or study those?
Oh no, that was purely theoretical.
Yeah.
But it was also a subject about forensic pathology. So we had those textbooks where lots of homicide victims and suicide victims that dead bodies.
Hard to look at, but it becomes a science after a while.
Yes, and so for example, I had no idea that one way how you can identify a suicide victim, for example, is that they tend to have lots of small wounds and then some deeper slashes. And the reason for that is that we are all afraid of pain. So when people think about cutting their veins and ending their lives in that particular manner, they would start with small cuts, and then they would get braver and cut deeper and deeper.
Commit to it.
Yes.
You never see that in the movies.
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember having to get a blood sample from myself once, and I was like, I turned into such a bitch. Immediately, I was like, no, you walk in there, no, I'm gonna get blood sample, but then you have this knife and you're trying to stab. It's a real instinctive backlash about that type of thing, unless you're a cutter. But
no.
That's the suicide. That's craziness. So then you decided to give it all up, and is there a way to bridge the gap between what you were doing as a Czech police officer in training to becoming a Japanese calligrapher, or is it there was just a fork in the road and like Robert Frost, you took the one less travel?
No, not at all. It's actually really different. I mean, with in Czech Republic, if you enter the police academy, you do not instantly become a police or law enforcement officer.
Yes.
You graduate, you can enter the law enforcement forces, but you don't have to. You can, and I even think that if you pass the test, you could theoretically become a lawyer. So you don't really. It's not like this is the only road for you, right? And
That's okay.
Before entering the police academy, I had already known my Battojutsu teacher, Nakagawa sensei, and I had already been practicing.
Your swordsman teacher.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd already been practicing. I'd already been in Japan, so the interest had already been there, and then he offered me the opportunity to go to Kumamoto and stay there for a period of time. Was it because
he had a discipline aspect to you, or was he just trying to get any student possible to go to Kumamoto?
Oh no. We had really this tight relationship because he would be coming to the Czech Republic and without any, let's say he would be coming for 3 months, for example, and he would usually stay crash at my place.
I see.
So really he was, and I'd been living on my own. So for those 3 months, he would basically act like my Japanese father, let's say. So he would cook and he would teach me sword techniques and stuff like that, in exchange for me letting him stay. And also I acted a little bit like his manager, so organizing seminars and stuff like that. And also
as a native speaker, that's a huge asset.
Yeah, and then translating.
You don't realize that until you move to another country, but having somebody to understand networking and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I really value that type of thing in Japan when that happens to me, let me tell you.
Yeah, and translating for him and so on. And in 2009 or 8, I think I started organizing international festivals, like Japanese culture festivals. And he had this, he has this big network of Japanese traditional arts masters here in Japan, and some of them would come and actually participate in those events, And eventually he used that network, and he was like, Thomas, if you're really so interested in Japanese culture, you can go to the temple in Konoto. You can go to Kenjin-juku, which was this like big complex of Edo period buildings where you can learn traditional culture and stuff like that.
It's a very theatrical, because that's like what so many people from our generation dream about, like, having this guy with a sword, Japanese guy with a sword. Yeah. Tomas-san, why don't you come to Kumamoto to my temple?
Well, it's not his temple. It's just that he was friends with Jishoku-san, and also I mean, but he's that open to almost everybody. Like if you were interested, we could schedule you a meeting with him. He lives in Oita right now. So,
that's also in Kyushu.
Yes.
Nice place. Nice place.
Thank you. I've been there.
Yeah, I've been to Beppu, and I used to do a lot of train journeys around Japan. I would take the one-man denchas. I would get something called a Seishun Juhachikipu, which is good for 5 non-consecutive days of local train travel, and I would just ride these local slow trains all around Japan, like through the mountains, up the sides of rivers, and just putter along. I've been all over Hokkaido. I've been around Tohoku. I've gone probably from Aomori down to Yama. Where is that place on the southern end of Honshu? Yamaguchi.
Oh, yes.
I'm getting Ichinoseki mixed up with Shimonoseki.
Yes, Shimonoseki.
So I've pretty much seen like the whole of Japan on the local trains, just puttering around. So yeah, it's not like bursting through mountains on the Shinkansen where you don't see anything. These are 9-12-hour journeys with 3-hour stops a few times a day, and just traveling around. Yeah, I did that for a few years. Pretty interesting. So yeah, Oita, nice place. And so you went there for 6 months to Kumamoto for the first time.
Actually, it was 1 year.
A 1 year program,
but divided into 4 3-month periods, right? 3-month periods. And the reason for that is that you cannot. I think it applies to all EU citizens, but you can stay for 90 days in Japan on a touristic visa, right? So you do not have to actually go and get a visa. And as you probably know, it's quite a hassle, right? It's a huge pain in the ass to actually get a working visa, especially if you do not have a company that would basically back you up, a corporation or a university, whatever. So just I didn't want to really trouble anyone. Gomeako. So I would just go there and go back, and usually we would time it so I would spend 3 months in Japan, then Sensei would go to the Czech Republic.
So you would do your 90-day visa thing and do it intermittently.
Yes.
What did you learn in this misty temple in the mountains of Kyushu?
Well, sweeping the floor mostly. No. It wasn't super straight. It was this very very small temple. Basically, just the head monk and his wife was there. Sometimes the daughter would visit, but that was it.
What was the size? When you say very small, how small is very small?
Very very small would be like I don't know, maybe 20 meters long, like the main building. And it was on top of the Ida mountain, and so you'd climb up, and then you had this main building, and then a pond, and then if you'd climb a little bit more for I think another 100 or 200 meters, there was the bell was there, and the main praying area, and I would say altar, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And also a small shrine, because it was Tendaishu, so that there was a small shrine attached. So that was it. It was and of course the gate and so on. But yeah, it wasn't.
So it wasn't like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
No, nothing like that. I mean, the atmosphere was fantastic.
I bet you was.
Lots of sakura and bamboo forests, and also wild boars and snakes everywhere. So you had to be careful. But yeah,
those last two,
Yes.
yeah, wild boars or snakes, but
both. Actually.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I'm saying.
yeah,
and
right.
is a
Yes.
well, there you go.
So yeah, but it was really nice, and so I practiced Zazen over there, meditation and learn Hanya Shinkyo.
And that requires a very specific sitting position.
Oh yes,
Zazen.
that's right, and
Yeah.
right. And Hanya Shinkyo, just the Heart Sutra.
Yeah, the Zazen. See, I used to know these words, but because I have all these tech words in my head now, like all these, like you sent me a list of all these things you're doing. I'm like, looks like a lot of traditional Japanese kanji. But what can you guide us through what some of the reasons behind the sitting positions? Like, because some people just think of meditation as chilling out, man. But Zazen is pretty strict, and you have to have like a posture, and I'm sure there's meaning behind these postures.
Yeah, well, I don't really want to provide you with any false information, so I'll just tell you what I know, and that is not because I'm not a monk myself, right?
Yeah.
So it's one thing to practice and another thing to actually.
It's one check man's interpretation.
Oh yeah, well, let's say like that.
What does this mean to you as an individual?
Oh yeah. So like, well, what I've been told is that. First of all, it's not about relaxing per se. It's more about being present and clearing your head and not having any thoughts. So ideally, your mind should become like a mirror. So whatever reality manifests in front of you, it reflects it. Without you actually giving or assessing any meaning to it, or without you making any judgments or any attachments to it. So the main aim would be to just sit and be present and not to think of anything, which is actually really, really hard. Because if you're sitting in complete silence and not thinking of anything, you get really sleepy,
or bored,
or you start daydreaming,
or
right?
get angry,
right?
Like why am I doing this? Yeah.
So that was one thing.
Stupid meditation. Yeah.
And also you had to try to close your eyes, but not completely, because then you would fall asleep. So your eyes would be like this. Exactly on the borderline between being and not being closed, so that you are not really sure whether you are seeing something or not, right?
Yeah.
So
light coming in through the bottom of a door,
basically. So that would be it, and then you would breathe, and you would breathe to your stomach, to your lower stomach, with your nose, and then breathe out with your mouth, and I won't give you specific numbers, but if I'm not mistaken, I think that the breathing out had to be at least twice as long as breathing in. So that was it. And if you got sleepy, then you had to actually ask as the head monk for a favor, and you do it by doing this and just leaning forward, and then he would approach you with a stick, and he would bash you on your shoulders, right?
Yeah. And the stick has like a couple of slats stuck into it.
No, nothing like that. Fortunately, no barbed wire. Yeah. He wasn't Negan. He was just this nice monk. No, fortunately not. So and it didn't hurt. It just it will just wake you up.
Yeah, it's a noise thing as I understand it, and like a sharpness,
yes.
a brief, something like that. Yeah.
Yes. So and that's it, right? And then for the rest of the day, well, I would practice tameshigiri with sensei, or we would clean.
Tameshigiri.
So it's like tamesu and kiro. right? Like to try out and to cut,
Yes.
right? And to it also sleep old leaves out of the way, so and out of the road, all the way down to the base of the mountain.
What did you learn from the cleaning?
Well, quite a lot actually, because I'm not a big fan, right?
Did you clean your room?
Oh yeah, Jordan Peterson.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah. So you see, I did actually read Jordan Peterson's.
Yeah, me too.
Right. 12,
I've been
12
following
rules
him since before he had 30,000 subscribers
Right.
on YouTube. Now he's up to 1.7 billion.
Holy crap! So 12 rules for
Million,
life, right? And really make some great points.
Yeah,
and,
it's just
and
nice practical
right.
advice. It's not trying to fuck you or
Yeah.
trying to get all these things from you. It's just
Yeah.
it's like saying, "Come on, man, really?" Like that's kind of the really. Are you gonna think that way? Yeah.
Like one of the things, right? I think the book starts with keep your back straight and your your
Yes.
shoulders back, and it's really
Stand with your back straight and
right,
shoulders back, something like that.
right.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because when you start practicing martial arts, the very first thing that they are going to teach you is shisei o tadasu. So you have to keep a straight or a correct posture. So and because it translates to everything else, right? And it was the same in the temple. So at the very first, I would like unknowingly. Basically unconscious or subconsciously, I would just, for example, I'll finish eating and just I don't know, leave the plate where it was, right, and then or just sleep on the floor, of course, using futon, and then just leave the futon and just go somewhere, right, and then they would be like Thomas, you have to clean after yourself, it's this nobody's going to do that for you, and really, without that very elemental discipline, you cannot really, you cannot really progress any further, right? Like you cannot expect, like for example, in Buddha, it's the same, but it's the same as pertains to all traditional discipline or traditional Japanese disciplines. First, so for example, you say, Buddha wa rei ni hajimaru, rei ni owaru. So it starts with a bow and it ends with a bow, or it starts with an etiquette and it ends with the etiquette, right?
Yes.
And
a clear beginning and a clear ending.
Right, and you cannot really expect people to teach you if you can't really bow before entering the dojo, right? Because how are they going to teach you techniques if you can't even do that, if you can't, it's not just a mechanical thing. If you cannot understand why you should bow to your teacher, why you should bow before entering the dojo, then or why you should clean the dojo after the practice, then there is no point in teaching you, right? And so I had to learn that the hard way, and it also helped a lot with my Japanese.
Because you have to communicate.
Right. Nobody spoke English there.
Yeah. Can you hand me the rake?
And then
we need more extra sticks in this broom. I broke a bunch of them with my gaijin powers.
well, similar. Yeah, I didn't break anything, but for example, we had to go and gather bamboo roots, takenoko. Mm-hmm. Right? And
you steam them up with rice and things like that.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
delicious.
So Omori-san would do that, and also we would bring a couple of them to the villages. Down at the
How'd they react when they saw your mug coming around the bend with a bunch of bamboo shoots?
Oh, they were actually very friendly and very excited to meet somebody else and some white guy in this somewhere
from the temple
in those like half well not really monk robes but somewhere nonetheless.
It sounds really touching, to be honest. It sounds like a nice way to communicate with the community and provide something that's not a monetary exchange, but
and I had this bamboo stick with 2 baskets full of bamboo shoots, which are really, really heavy.
Yes, they add up.
Yeah,
so
they do.
Did you learn more about discipline from cleaning than you did from your initial sword training?
Well, not really. It was just, it helped me understand that, let's say, discipline does not end with you exiting the dojo, right? That you cannot really, put on a mask when you go into your dojo and do the practice, and then go out and basically forget everything. It's like with those people that they go to their church, the local church, and then they spend 3 hours on their knees praying, and then they go back home and beat their wife, let's say, right? So it's yeah, well, that's quite extreme, but it's a paradox, right?
Yes.
Like you cannot say that you are a good Christian and then abandon all those values when you exit the church, right?
Okay, yeah, you have to carry them with you.
Right.
It's like you're charging your moral batteries.
Right. So I guess it really helped me to connect, those two aspects.
Oh, okay. So clean, like taking it out of the dojo. It doesn't.
Yes,
I
yes,
see what you
yes.
mean. So you don't just isolate the discipline. You
Yes.
find a way to spread the discipline.
Yes. So because if you just keep being straightforward and serious and disciplined while you practice, and then you just throw it out the moment you stop practicing, then you're learning Buddha in a very, very limited way.
That's a good point. Very limited.
Yes.
Far too limited.
Well, yeah. Well,
So, but it's interesting because we have these very clear parameters of things that begin and end. You bow when you come into the dojo. You
Yes.
practice these forms. You do some sort of ceremonial or formality thing when you begin to clean the temple, and then it finishes on a very kind of formal note. In Japan, things begin and end on a very specific line.
Yes.
But you try to spread across that line some sort of strictness to how you do things.
Yeah. I
It,
guess
it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because we're talking about highly specific
right.
things that we're trying to adapt to or learn from, but then spreading them out into other aspects of our life.
Yeah, and I get like how it can sound like an oxymoron, let's say, like
Exactly, yeah.
But somehow it makes sense.
It does, because you try to apply that amount of discipline to the next
Yes.
thing you do.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like with more and more with North American culture, it's becoming more and more casual.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what type of situation you're in, people just kind of talk the same to each other. So if you're in like a Silicon Valley board meeting, people are just like, so yeah, Jerry, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, and then, but it's impossible to do that in Japan because when you can't just apply a lackadaisical manner to so many things across life. So in Japan, I kind of, more and more as I see North America kind of going into this increasingly casual culture, the more I find it hard to distinguish one thing from another. But in Japan, everything is such a time, place, occasion. I can kind of understand how to adapt to a situation a little better sometimes.
I would be interested as to why, because one of the things that my master's studies really, one of the ways in which that really opened my eyes, that lots of my colleagues, thank you. Other students, they were from the US, and prior to that, I had this image of North America being very homogeneous place. Like if you are an American, you're
Proud
basically
to
the
be an
American,
American.
let's say. But then I was told that that there are huge differences between people from Texas and then New Orleans and New York and South Dakota and then stuff like that. So I would be interested whether this like casualizing of not just everyday but also formal life, whether this applies to the US or let's say North America as a whole, or just some pockets?
I think it has to do with more modern culture, where
Right.
I think if you go back to the 1970s, like business culture and music culture is very different from each other wherever you go. But in the past 10, 15, 20 years, with internet and tech bringing everything together, K-pop sounds like American pop a lot more than traditional Japanese music sounds like New Orleans jazz, for example. So I think it's this hyper-connected culture where everything is just like a quick message, that it begins this casualization of the culture in English, or in North America at least. Like, for example, the European English tends to be still quite formal and using a lot of Latin-based vocabulary. American English tends to be using a lot of short words, like you got to get on it, that type of expression. You got to go and get some.
Right.
You got to man up. 3 doors down. Something like that, as opposed to the 3rd door on the left.
Oh yes.
Something like that. So I see this differentiation between Japan and North America, with the usage of casual expressions across all situations, kind of leading to a lack of discipline, rather in Japan, where you got to train very specifically for each situation. You got to be ready for it in the future. Like, you can't just be a singer-songwriter and be half-assed. Like, if you want to play guitar, you practice the shit of the guitar. Maybe 5 years, you're ready for that situation because you've been training for it. I don't know. I feel like there's that type of difference between the cultures.
It's interesting because I used to teach English at both Sofia and Edoga universities. When I was a student myself, and one of the things that really surprised me is that basically the British English is non-existent here. So because if you grow up on somewhere in the continental
You're
Europe,
used to drunk Brits storming your town for cheap lager.
Well, not just that, but even in schools all across the board, people would be teaching and learning British English, right? And I don't think that, I don't mean to offend you, but American English is being looked down on, as in a sense, like there's this internet meme, right? That there is
I agree.
there is the
As
British
a Canadian,
English,
I agree.
and then there are mistakes, right?
Yeah.
But
I literally jumped out of my skin.
no.
That type of thing.
Right. Oh yeah. But people in Japan, but Japanese, and I guess that it has a lot to do with the geographical proximity between the two. But basically, all of them would be learning American English, right?
They learn American style English, but you find that the way they learn English is Japanese-based American English.
Oh, yes.
So
Yes.
it's not like you have Japanese people learning American English per se. They learn American spelling, or they learn from American books or something like that. But it's still done in a very Japanese eigo no benkyou,
Yes.
manabu, like
Yes.
like a kagaku kind of a feeling.
Very
like
like test-centric.
yeah, exactly. So, anyways, so let's get on to back to what you're doing. So I think we got enough. Yeah. So wait. So how did you? Let's bring it back. So how did you get from Kumamoto to Tokyo to do what you're doing now?
Well, during my 1 year stay, I think 3 or 4 months were a homestay at his home that belonged to my tea ceremony teacher, and I would practice there. I would help out. I would learn tea ceremony and calligraphy and tameshigiri and all of that. But on many evenings, we would just sit down and talk with I really don't know whether to call her my teacher, or because she would be referring to me as, musko.
A child.
Like basically,
subordinate.
yeah. Well, basically, no, not like that. Her son. So really, she was almost like my mom.
Oh, it's more like that.
Yeah, like
okay.
really to that degree.
Sure.
And
I'm thinking of my tech company.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
no.
Yeah.
So
The
she
tech
was
company I work at.
she's an extraordinarily kind person, and she actually had like two sons that were not her own. They're complete strangers. Just for example, one of them, his parents died when he was very young, and she wouldn't like legally adopt him, but basically, to all intents and purposes, she would basically adopt him and just raise him and stuff like that.
How old was he? 35?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Because she should be 65 or 66 right now, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a good age for a 65-year-old to adopt a 35-year-old.
Yeah. Well, but even before that, she would basically raise him.
Okay.
Right? And so she would not only teach me like tea ceremony, but act as my mentor, basically. And we had this talk about me wanting, in the future to actually live in Japan and to practice, because if you're really serious about practicing traditional culture, traditional disciplines, then I think that you need to come to Japan. It's just that's where it is. I mean, because there are phenomenal teachers in Europe and all over the world, but I think you still really want to go and learn it where all the great masters, all the great personas.
There's also more
are.
of a concentration
Yes.
and a variety, and if one place doesn't work out, another might.
Yes. Well, so and one of the things that I was told is, Thomas, if you want to come and actually live in Japan and work here and actually practice here, then it makes a huge difference if you graduate from a Japanese university or if you come and you have graduated from a European one.
Sophia does carry a lot of weight as well.
Yeah,
as like an international school
Yes.
gateway into Japan.
Yes, and the Japanese, they really love brands, and it applies to universities as well. So had I graduated from, I don't know, Harvard or Oxford, that would, I guess it would be all right, but I didn't. So
If you had a degree from Harvard Business School.
All right, for example.
But if you had a degree from Harvard School of Japanese Studies.
Oh yeah.
It would carry a lot less weight.
I also guess it might be depending on your particular area of study, or like, I don't know. Yeah, but so I knew that I wanted to enter a Japanese university, and then I had to pick one. So I would apply to a few, and I was, well, to some I was accepted, to some I wasn't, and among the ones that I had to choose from was Ritsumeikan in Kyoto and Sophia here in Tokyo, but more of the dojos I wanted to go to are located here in Kanto. So that's
weird,
isn't
it? Because you said Kyoto. That's where you should have gone.
Well,
to put the beads on. And
but interestingly,
in the clothes.
Enough, right?
But you chose Tokyo.
Yes.
Because of the options available here.
Well, one of the dojos I'm attending is in Kawasaki.
Oh.
And another one is in Tateishi.
Where's Tateishi?
Tateishi, that's Takasago, Aoto.
Where's that?
Nippori.
Nippori. Okay.
Close to.
I see.
Relatively close to Nippori.
Sort of East Tokyo.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not familiar so much.
So basically, when you board a train going from Nippori to Narita, and basically it's like maybe after 15 or 20 minutes.
Sure.
You're right, Takasago.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that area at all.
Oh yeah.
It's all gray to me.
Really,
So-
but do you know what is Tateishi famous for?
No, I have no idea.
It's actually quite famous for those, old Showa period styled sakaba, izakayas.
I love I was just talking all day today about Showa style izakayas.
Yes, and Showa style izakayas, plenty of them are located over there.
Yeah.
People are saying that this like disappearing Showa style izakaya culture is actually concentrated over there. So maybe
I'd love
maybe
to
you
go
could-
sometime.
you could
Yeah.
give it a try.
I live in Nishi, Tokyo, which also has a lot of Showa stuff, but it's a little bit more punk rock.
Okay.
Out where you're talking about, it's a little bit like construction worker style.
Oh, yeah.
Izakaya.
Yes, absolutely. And
Where I am, it's more like
elderly people.
punk rocker
Right.
izakaya. They're old punk rockers, but it's okay. So what are you hoping to do with all of this? You were saying that you're trying to do some. People clichésly say that it's building a bridge between Japanese culture and Western culture, but
Yeah, it's something like that. But I really I used to like that metaphor, but I think it's so overused.
I say it
Yes,
clichésly.
Yes, yeah, it is. It really is. Well, basically,
but nobody says clichésly, so I used cliche in an original way.
what I would like to do, I guess, at first at least, would be to provide opportunities for people who either come from abroad to Japan or already live here. Doesn't really matter. Or even to Japanese, if it comes to that, to come in and learn traditional Japanese culture and become familiarized with it and
Swing
to
swords?
proliferate this kind of traditional Japan and traditional Japanese, let's say. Well, I wouldn't say. Well, philosophy maybe. I don't.
I would say that
What's
there's a
the word?
philosophical,
Right.
Because if you're coming at it the way you did from temple sweeping,
Yes.
it's not just the ninja restaurant.
No,
look
no,
at
no,
me
no.
do a flip on the street.
No,
It's-
I really dislike that.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
It's a bastardization of the actual representation.
yes,
but-
yes.
So I would say philosophically, absolutely.
Yeah. And for example, it can take as one of the forms how that it can take is people can come in and try out Japanese calligraphy, or they can we're planning I'm planning organizing events. So for example, one should take place in November at the Embassy of Brazil in Japan, and we'll be taking Japanese and Brazilian students and doing a cultural exchange between the two and an intercultural dialogue, and then they would be hopefully they will be provided with an opportunity to try out Japanese calligraphy, and so on and so on. So although the company is about calligraphy, what I'm trying to do is it's not limited to just that.
Are you doing this right now? Like you mentioned that there's this event with the Brazilian
Yes.
embassy, sorry. But it's the whiskey soda
That's
talking.
all right.
What kind of people are coming out? Do you know? Like I know Brazilians, but you're like this Czech Polish guy doing Japanese cultural stuff. Is there?
Well, so the guy that is helping me out a lot is actually, I think he's the head of the education and culture at the embassy, at the Brazilian embassy, and his name is Leo, and it's a very, very interesting fellow, and I guess like if I would if I were to recommend maybe a guest here at your podcast,
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
that would be him, because he was born without I think
a face.
No. I think his right
Sorry.
leg, his right leg, ends right above his knee.
Okay.
But he was born like that, right?
Okay.
And despite that, he started practicing.
You wouldn't say it was an amputee.
No.
What is
was
that
not.
called? I don't want to speculate because I'll just come up with it.
Yeah, I would need to ask him.
I'd like to know the medical terminology.
Right.
Sure. Absolutely.
And he's but he started practicing martial arts nonetheless, and he has really high grade, I think, in Aikido, and also he practices Shintoryu and Kyudo.
What are those?
Shooting with
Japanese archery.
Yeah. So.
Do you do that?
With the Japanese bow? No. I'm doing something else, right? For
Okay.
example, the traditional dance.
Yeah.
Nihonboi. But so that, and also ikebana and stuff like that. And also he is huge on he tries to engage himself in like prosthetic limbs research and stuff like that, because he has to use one himself.
Yes.
He has a prosthetic leg.
There's a lot of innovative technologies being developed right now with 3D printing.
Yeah,
and
so I'm
things
quite
like
certain
that.
he could talk about it for like 30 minutes.
That's an awesome idea.
So, and he's helping me, out with that a lot, because he's also in love with the Japanese culture and traditional Japanese disciplines and the way in which it universally, you don't need to be Japanese to study that, right? The universal way in which it uplifts your spirit and makes you a better person.
Yeah. Disciplines is freedom. That's the Jocko Willink.
Well, but in a way, I mean, if you're an existentialist, then
you're very, because you're Czech. I love Czech existentialism. By the way, I really spend a lot of time reading most of Kafka's works, and by myself, not because some university teacher told me, and really reading a lot of it. Yeah. So what about existentialism?
Well, then you surely understand how terrifying is an unhinged freedom, right? So if you so one of the big the big paradigm of existentialism is that there's 4 great anxieties that we have to battle, we have to deal with, right? And there are it's our fear of death and the lack of meaning, right? And loneliness, and then also freedom. So freedom is being looked upon as not something necessarily inherently good, but also this terrifying.
What do you do with it?
Right. What is terrifying reality of you needing to constantly, during your life, constantly choose between options and move through the path of life, and each and every time, because you have infinite possibilities, but you need to choose one, because there is this unstoppable progress of time.
There's a million ways to cross a field.
But once you pick one, you're basically killing off and throwing away all the others.
Oh, that sounds great.
Because you don't really, because there is a progress of time, right? You cannot really go back. So even if you retract your steps and you pick one of the other original possibilities, some time has already passed and you are older and the situation around you has changed, and so it's not the same, right? And
it's like connecting the dots. It's like paint. It's like a combination of painting yourself into a corner and connecting the dots. Like you can connect your dots into a corner if you're not careful about how you're connecting the dots.
Well, that's it. But also one of the what is really unfair, I guess. Although life itself, I wouldn't say that it has any concept of fairness. That's a human construct, right?
Yeah.
But one of the very
makes me want to pee my pants. Is that terrifying?
What's really unfair is you need to choose between different varying options without knowing the results, right?
Yeah.
But still, bearing the full consequence and responsibility of that choice or of each different choice. There's this passage in Nietzsche's Das spoke Zarathustra. It's called the heaviest burden. Probably know it, but
I haven't read much Nietzsche actually.
No,
yeah,
no.
so I'm more into the later forms of existentialism, not
okay.
the original.
Okay.
What? Please do go on.
Yeah, I'm certain I'm going to horribly misrepresent Nietzsche
as an
here.
individual.
Yes.
What does this mean to you?
Basically, it goes something like this. So imagine yourself sleeping at home, right, alone. So your wife is not there, and all of a sudden this
party, right?
Oh no. Well, in a way, and all of a sudden this demon materializes in front of you.
Ooh.
And what he or well.
All right.
It can be.
No, I'm into demonic manifestations. Is fine.
Okay, but let's say this being, or he tells you that
It's manifestation.
right, that your life is over. You're going to die. At least eventually.
Yes.
Nothing else.
Yes.
And your life, as you have lived it up
Tell
to
me
now,
something I don't know, demon.
Okay, and your life, as you have lived it up until now, is going to repeat itself.
Okay.
But you won't be able to change anything.
Okay.
It's going to unfold in the same exact manner each and every second of your life, including this very moment with the demon talking to you, and this very room, and this very reflection of the moon on the wall, and so on and so on. And it's going to unfold in the same way, and in the same way, and then start anew, and once again progress without you being able to change or let's say influence anything. So how would that make you feel, right?
Well, do I in my next rebirth, do I know this or do I not know this?
Well, I don't think so. You don't know this, but the problem is, like, if you look back on your life, like, are there any major regrets that you have?
I've had a few.
Well, and would you like to keep reliving them at infinitum, right? So,
no.
Right, and so basically, there is this heavy burden. There would be this heavy burden lying on you of how to live your life without actually having to despair because of that, inevitable future or let's say destiny that awaits you.
That's been preordained. So what? So is that's the existentialist point, right? It doesn't really need to wrap itself up, or because how does that fit in to the point? Like
right.
What's so whether I'm reborn and is it just the fact that
it's no. It's at least to me, it's just the fact of how terrifying human freedom can actually be. Right?
Okay.
If you think about all the consequences,
living with the consequences of your freedom.
Yes, and with the responsibility that it's.
You did that, so that's you.
Right. Even if you had no idea about what the consequences were going to be and stuff like that. And I think we were talking about discipline.
Yes, I was going to kind of bring that back. So, like, does this type of existentialism, can you shoehorn it anyway into the Japanese studies that you do, or is these like, because living in Japan, we have our Japanese brain and our wherever we're from brain, and sometimes they can be very separate from each other because they just don't coagulate well enough. But do these existentialist? Are you very existentialist, or are these just things that you kind of popped up?
No. I quite am actually.
Okay. And me too. Quite seriously,
right,
so.
Right.
Like, and it's not just like fashion for me.
Yes.
It's this broiling,
yes,
torrent of background information,
Yes.
kind of constantly, like, and at certain times of the day, people are cranking it up to 8 or 9, but
Right.
it can go back down to 0
Right,
if it needs to
right.
be, but it's going to come back.
Yeah.
So can you, do you incorporate these existentialist ideas into Japanese thought, or are they just one's one and one's the other, or?
I think you certainly do, and one, I would say that one of the points of existentialism is that it's universal, right? And if you think about, Buddhism, for example, which if you're a, let's say, Japanese studies professors, you might argue that Buddhism is not really Japanese, or that there are Japanese forms of Buddhism, and so on and so on. But the point that I'm trying to make is that it talks a lot about being attached to life, which in a way you can see as a different way of talking about our fear of death and disappearing. And certainly at least what I thought is that traditional Japanese culture and disciplines, but it's not. What I'm practicing is Japanese traditional culture. I'm really sure that there are other traditional disciplines that would be helpful in that respect as well. But I would say it certainly helps with you finding a meaning of your existence, if nothing else than in bettering yourself and trying to there's this word kaizen in Japan, trying to uplift yourself or lift yourself to ever greater heights. And in a certain way it also deals with death and once you basically become a part of a greater tradition, which you can then pass onwards if and also helps you to connect with other people, which and with yourself, because I'm sure you know that, but there are two types of loneliness. It's interpersonal, intrapersonal. You can be lonely in regards to other people, but also in regards to some parts of your own self. So
sometimes I find that when relationships with other people kind of die down, existentialism can help me kind of reconnect with myself a little bit, and that's pretty interesting. So, any extra thoughts? We got to wrap it up pretty soon here.
Oh yes, sorry, I'm a huge talker.
No, we're already past 1 hour, by the way.
Yeah.
We've done like 1 hour and 2 minutes. I'm kind of checking down here sometimes just because of the light. I can't see the recording time.
Oh, okay.
So I'm looking down, not because I'm trying to look at my watch or anything. I'm just
no.
like making sure things are going smoothly. But I want to bring it before we let's try to get back to the Calligraphy Association, because I could talk about existentialism all fucking day. It's a crazy kind of there's a lot to chew on. I find sometimes religion is too abstract and we can take it anywhere, but like existentialism is like, here's this juicy thought that you can really play with, like Play-Doh, and what do you do with it? But regarding the Calligraphy Association and things like that, where can people find you?
Well, very close to this studio. It's we are located near Kitasando station, which is right next to Meiji Jingu. So and from here, from Yoyogi station, it's maybe 7 minutes on foot.
Do you guys offer courses? Like you say, you're offering.
We do regular courses and also like distance learning, or and also calligraphy experience. So, for example, a group of at least 2 and up to 10 people can come to us, and they would learn how to they would familiarize themselves with Japanese calligraphy. We'd go through the history and all the tools necessary, and then they would learn how to write some kanji, and then they would write it on a keyboard or on a fan and bring it back home with them.
That's really fun. Let's finish with this.
Right.
Because I used to do I've done a lot of kanji renshu,
Yes.
but recently, because I run a paperless school, as well as play music and do a bunch of it. I haven't been playing music a lot, so on the podcast I constantly mention my paperless school, but really I don't want to. I'm not really just only a teacher, but I've noticed that more and more people are navigating towards not writing kanji at all, ever. So what's the argument for writing calligraphy, and what can you explain? Maybe an educational benefit and a disciplinary benefit, or something like that, or a fun benefit.
Well,
it is basically coloring.
Well, there are a few. First of all, if you are Japanese yourself, then you might find yourself in a social situation where you just need to write something, down in a hand, and having nice and disciplined handwriting can go a long way, to make a good impression on other people. But it's not just that. I mean, people tend to forget kanji, like even Japanese.
Yeah.
They because they use they would be writing on a computer all day long, and it helps you out. Then they, for example, they don't really have that much trouble reading, although sometimes that happens as well. But
reading is quite high.
But especially writing down, like I would see Japanese people thinking about, okay, was this character written like this or like that?
Yeah.
So something like that.
Is it mountain or is it fire?
Right.
Is it a a bull here, or is it a
Yeah, and maybe not reading per se, but there are some unusual types of reading, which if you don't do calligraphy, you might not be have some trouble with them, or some calligraphy or some styles. Like, for example, if you have all the documents and they are in social, right? And
what's social?
It's a like cursive
brush writing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the form is really different from the standardized,
like a sashimi menu.
Writing. Right. So it's very artistic, but also kind of hard to read, and also it can become, or it is, an art. It is.
That's true too.
So you can so if you, let's say, have artistic inclinations and you don't want to be a painter, maybe you can become a calligrapher.
No color palette required.
Yes.
All right. So it's Tomas Ballada-san, the existentialist, Buddhist, Japanese. Are you Buddhist?
I am.
The existentialist, Buddhist, Japanese swordman, calligrapher, coming at you from Tokyo, Japan. And they can find you at www.syodou.net or shojei.net. Is that fine?
No, actually, we have. I've created an English website.
Oh, okay.
So there is an English website, and the website is shogeigaku.com.
Just send me the link and I'll put it in the show notes.
Yes, I'll do that.
All right. Check us out on MatthewPMBigelow.com, and you can find us again on YouTube at MrBigelow for Twitter, and anything else. I think that's all right. Thank you very much. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Peace.
This beer, it's really weird. What? This is beer. This beer is really weird. It's like just weird.